Hey everyone, today there's a 24-inch Craftsman Rototiller on the table. The person gave it to me, I want to say like 2 months ago, in hopes that I would have the ability to fix the transmission because it was no longer working. Because when you pick it up, it pretty much freewheels and you hear a bunch of clanking in the housing, and as you can tell, it's broken too. Well, good news and bad news about that. One, the engine works just fine. Two, they don't really sell them. It's a obsolete, discontinued part. I was able to find a couple of them that are kind of like that new old stock or overstock or whatever sites, and they weren't cheap. I think the cheapest one I found was like $100. There's a couple on eBay and whatnot, but you know, never know, it might be the same problem. So I told him, like, we can. He's like, nah, don't even worry about it, just keep the engine, and if you find another one that has a blown engine, then let me know and maybe we can switch it off. That's fine. But wouldn't you know it, now excuse the hose, I found another Craftsman, except it's gray, rototiller that I think is probably just a little bit older, but the transmission appears to work and the engine is seized. So what we're going to do is, I think the parts are pretty much interchangeable. We're going to take the engine off this, put it on that one, recycle the body on this, maybe take a few of the parts, cables. The handle looks pretty stout, maybe I use that pipe, or who knows. But point being is, we need to take the engine off and see if it works. I see that there is some weirdness going on here. I've heard it run before. That was a long time ago though. And it's been sitting inside of my house for about 2 months while I was waiting for a new one to come. So let's see if that even starts. They're both more or less the same engine. This one's obviously newer. It is a Briggs, 9 foot-pounds of torque, so that's like, okay, let's give it a pull. I think that's choke. I think that might be choke. Oh, we'll give it a pull either way, but we're probably going to want to do at least half throttle. The fuel is on. That's great. Let's hope that was the non-choke. Or it needs to be turned on. Definitely needs a new gas lid. But why? Very weird. Well, we'll look at that later. But it runs, so let's go ahead and get this started. Here's the good bad news. I did a little looking. The body is the exact same. The pulley appears to be the same. It's more or less the same. The engine, however, obviously is not the same. So our mounting for this bracket, which holds the tension on the belt here, and that's the only thing. And it also might hold the cover on. Yeah, also hold the cover on. So it's a little bit different. On the new one, there is a or the old one I should say, there's a bolt that bolts in here, and this one is not here. This little area is not here on the new one, old one. So, but other than that, the brackets are more or less the same. It might be a little bigger down here or something like that. Pulleys are the same. Belt appears to be the same size, which is good because this is a good belt and the other one is not. So we're going to be changing the belt too. So I took the liberty of taking off the cover so you can see this. It's literally just held into place with, there's a screw that goes in here, which looks like it was funkeried a little bit. That could be stuck, but I would hope not. But yeah, it just literally is a cover that just holds it in place. We need to take this off, and from what I'm looking at, that's pretty much the only thing that's holding it on, except for maybe, yeah, it appears to be nothing else. So technically, if we were to, let's take off the cable first though. We might keep that cable for a different project. I don't know. It's pretty decent. I mean, it seems to be working. You never know when a cable will come in handy. That's going to stay with the bad transmission. So a lot of these fittings are like this on rototillers. They have, if it's the same engine, they'll have the same mounting points, but because they're a little different, a lot newer, they might be different. So be prepared for a little bit of that. And this isn't big enough. Looks like I also need to take off this pulley too. Yeah. Where's the cut? Oh no, that's solid in there. So I'm gonna take a little time and remove this and remove that, and then we'll take off the engine. I had an epiphany. Why am I taking this off? I'm just gonna have to put it back on again. And it's super rusty. It's gonna be a giant pain. Just have to take a pair of like pullers and take it off. Maybe I'll damage it. I don't want to do that. If you can tell, it goes in and it's pretty thin. So it's not like the world's best quality. So I think I even see spatter, so I think someone did tack that in. But anyway, so I decided to leave it in. I, however, took off the other one because that one I do need to take off. So the other one's been taken off. Now what you need to do is, the only thing holding this engine in is gravity and a couple bolts. So from here, the real fun one is going to be the two in the back. Never mind, there's only one in the back. That's interesting. But I'm going to take off the two right here. There should be 1/2 inch or something very close to it. There should be some nuts on the bottom, which there is. And then once we have that removed, this will be able to be taken off. So I'm going to go ahead and remove them, and we'll remove the engine. Got those off. I have a feeling that this engine was not the original one on this because it had 3 different size bolts on there. It had a 14 millimeter, a 1/2 inch, and a 5/16, and it's missing one. So come to your own conclusions. Okay, I'm going to take this dirty piece of junk off here and put the new one on, and we will do the same thing to the other one. Here we have the new one. I took the cover off. I say that, but I actually didn't really need to. It already came off. See what I was telling you about the blade or the belt being trash? I mean, yeah. You know what it will help us do though, is it's a little difficult to get off, but in the thin side, it comes right off. That goes directly to the trash. So that's the bracket that we could take off originally. That cable is just as fluid as the old one. Yeah, the old hole is like right there. There isn't another hole in the other block for that one. So yeah, we're definitely going to have to do the same thing. So I'm going to take off the pulley, and then I'm going to loosen this, take off the nut, take off the 4 screws holding it down to the deck, and I'll bring you back. So we're going to have an issue with this because, well, it's a pulley. So I'm going to get my puller out, and we're going to try to get it off without damaging it. Whoa there. I need to get my impact. Probably should have got this ready, huh? But I cleaned off as much rust as I could, put a little lubricant on the end, as all good things have, and we're gonna see what happens. It popped right off the same time the puller fell off. Maybe it had something to do with it, who knows? Probably. There's 3 things in this world I hate most: extension cords, hoses, and pullers. Not necessarily in that order, depending on what I'm using that particular day. There we go. So that one's still good. So I'm just going to remove the bolts off the engine. I still have yet to do that, but I want to show how to remove a pulley. If it's super stuck, you're going to have to use a little heat because you don't want to ruin it. Unless you do want to ruin it, then just keep cranking down. It doesn't really matter. Put everything back on. I mean, it's pretty boring to watch out, so I didn't really show it. So I just put the new engine on, bolted it back on. I put the old bolts that were on this deck. They seem to be a lot better. Well, I wouldn't say better, just meant for this. Go ahead and put this back on. It's a keyed, well, it's a slotted shaft. So, there we go. That needs to go on top. I just looked over, I noticed your mic was not on, but I just put a little key on there, or a little clip, just to hold it in place. The old one I was explaining before, I didn't have a pliers small enough, so I just broke it off. And this is a little bigger and a little better. Oh no, I'm supposed to put this on first. Okay, well, let me do that real quick. The good part is this hole actually coincides with that, so I'm pretty sure this was just broken off the old one. That doesn't make sense. Hey, we do have to take it off. Oh, it's just spinning out. that is completely... Is it welded on there? It can't be welded on there. And I think it might be welded on there. Yeah. It's very odd. Even then, it doesn't really match with that anyway when it goes further in. So that makes sense why this wasn't on there before. All is not lost though. We will continue on and put it back together. Except we are needing to take that off, wrap that around when we're done. Oddly enough, this is one of the easier ones. If you start going into like different brands and whatnot, it can get a little difficult. A lot of the mountings are the same for stuff like pressure washers, sometimes for rototillers. But these side shaft ones like this, they really like to customize it for their own application, so they'll have like random stuff like that. Okay, so we are not going to tighten that yet because we want to look at the belt. And we need to put this on now. As a comparison, this is what was on there before. This is what I'm putting on there now. It's nice and clipped in there. That was a lot easier when no one was watching. Okay. Now we have that on there. Let's put the belt on. This could be a little treacherous. Oh wait, no, we took off that little rod. So that's fine now. So we want there to be just a little bit of tension, but not a lot. But the handle also needs to be completely decompressed. Probably more like right there. Let's see. That's completely tight. And we'll test it, of course, but you can't see. Why didn't you say something? Okay, so it's loose now, and then press on the handle. It's nice and tight. Nice and tight. I might adjust that a little bit when we actually get going, but I think it's pretty good now. I think we're gonna put all this stuff away, turn on the engine, and see if everything is good to go. Got it all done. I did a quick little check, and I have to use the red cover because I took the plate off, and the plate is what it mounts to, and the gray one that came with it, it's not the same. That's unfortunate. It's to be expected, but unfortunate. Let's give it a pull. I think that was choke. Okay, everything seems to be good to go. Just gonna clean up all that stuff that's in the middle of it, make it a little more presentable, probably wash it, but that's it. So, like I was saying before, a lot of the times you can just switch it over and there's no problem. We had to deal with a plate. If you do have a plating, because of how the pulleys work or the tensioner works or whatever it works, they're gonna want to change it. If you don't, going to do a whole lot more work. Yeah, it's going to look a little mismatchy, but unless you're sending this to the Rototiller Beauty Awards, it's not going to be too much of a problem. It might just look a little odd. So I think that wraps it up on this one. I'm going to do a general tune-up, air filter and whatnot on this. For the guy, he's a pretty cool dude, so I'm going to do that for him and let him know it is ready. Other than that should be about it. If you are looking for a newer one and you buy a new engine, just make sure the mountings are the same, like I said, and try to stay in the relative same horsepower ranking, because that's what this is built to handle. I mean, could I mock it up and put like a 10 horsepower on there? Of course. Should I? Most definitely not. That might just mess up the gears in there. So you don't want to do that. This is relatively the same amount of power. It's the same size. It should last a long time, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, like we see, keep watching, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good night.